the Bible. I'm going to tell you the entire story of the Bible in this episode. I even put the whole history of the Bible on one page. Can you imagine? So, this conversation is all about where did the Bible come from? Where did we get this book? How did it get to us? How did it arrive here in the form that we have it? What happened? I don't know if you ever asked those questions when you were in church. I asked those questions when I was growing up in the cult of Jehovah's Witnesses. They kept telling me, read the Bible, read the Bible, read the Bible. And I was like, every time I open this book and read it, it's not, something about it is not landing. It's not landing. And it took me decades of study and reading to come to what the Bible is. And I'll tell you what the Bible is. The Bible is a collection of literature, humanities collection. It's a library. It has nothing to do with God. It's not about God. It didn't come from God. It's not inspired by God. And it's not binding on you, nor is it binding on anyone. It is wholly neutral in telling stories. It's telling stories about this person and this person and that person and that person. And you get to decide what those stories mean. However, the problem, which you will clearly see tonight, it will be clearly elucidated. The problem has been that church told us what to think of the Bible. Church told us how to view the Bible. Church, there was someone standing over our shoulder as we were reading the Bible, and they were telling us this means that, and that means that, and that means that. And I can prove it to you from the Bible. Let's get into it. I love you. Welcome to The Real God Is Not in the Bible, the podcast. I am your hostess with the mostest, Reverend Valerie Love. Hit me up at valerielove.com. Let's get into it. Screen share. You are going to love the story of the Bible that I'm going to tell you tonight. You're going to love it. You are going to love the story of the Bible that I'm going to tell you. You're going to love it. Okay, let's go. Here we are, and we're going to go on screen share. And if you want to know what Christian Witches is, I am a practicing Christian witch for souls who love Christ and the craft. Go to christianwitches.com. Everything is there for you. Here's my new motto. New information is not a threat. Say it with me. New information is not a threat. It's an opportunity to reassess what we think we know. New information is not a threat. So sometimes when we get new information, just like I write about in the book, we get new information, cognitive dissonance sets in because the new information is hitting an old belief structure we have in our minds, and the two are different. And we have to resolve the dissonance. And many people resolve the dissonance by sending away the new information. No, get out of here, heretic. I don't want to hear it. La, 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 la. That's how most people solve or resolve the dissonance that exists between what they currently believe and new information that's coming in. I view new information as an opportunity to reassess what we think we know, because we think we know a lot that we don't really know. That's what this is going to be. I warn you in advance. Let's talk about the purpose of this series. What is the whole reason that this podcast exists? The Real God Is Not in the Bible, and we always hold this podcast on Witchy Wednesday. Why? For the magic of it, right? Why is this series in existence? Why does it exist? What is the intention? Because if I'm inviting you into this conversation on Wednesday nights that we have, you would want to know, well, what's your intention before I engage with you? And that would be a fair question. This is my intention. My intention is to reveal humanity's true origins. all the way going back to the shenanigans of the Anunnaki and divine nature, that we are here. And though we are the product of genetic engineering, we have a divine nature, which has been hidden, both of these, the true origins and the divine nature, both of these have been hidden from us for thousands of years because religion ignored both of them, and they asked you to ignore both of them. They asked you to ignore your true origins, that you are children of star-faring beings. All of us are. Nothing to be afraid of there. And they asked us to forget our divine nature and tried to convince us that we're sinners who need a savior. That's what they tried to do. No, 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 no. My next intention, the next aspect of the intention is to provide conclusive evidence. We like to be evidentiary in our proceedings, to provide conclusive evidence. I don't want any question in our minds that the Bible is not about God. It's not written by God. It wasn't inspired by God. It's not a holy book. It's not a sacred book. It's not a religious book. It is my job to present to you every week conclusive evidence of these facts. And therefore, if the first two be true, it flows from the first two to free anyone who desires from the heavy yoke of believing the Bible is from God. Truth sets us free, but first it pisses us off. And of course, to end all war and foment, inspire peace and goodwill among all people, Black people, white people, Israeli people, Palestinian people, Russian people, American people, Chinese people, Islamic people, Hebrew people, all people, witches, wizards, shamans, magicians, all people, all. And not only all people, all beings everywhere. Oneness. Let us return to the oneness, the one God, the one life, the one truth, the one light, the one power. There's one power in this whole universe. There's only one. So don't be caught up in the duality of Black versus white, Israeli versus Palestine, China versus United States, on it, Democrat versus Republican, this one, but stop it. Don't get involved in that duality. Be the stand for oneness, light, truth, and power on the world for all people and beings that are not even people, many of which are among us. That's a conversation for another day. The entire Bible in one session. Look at this book. Look at this magnificent book. Where did this book come from? Are you like me? Like, I have 50 million questions. Where did this book come from? Like, it's Obadiah and then it's Luke. Like, it's killing and then it's love. Like, it's genocide and then it's all of us together. God loves everybody. Like, what is this? What am I reading? What is this? Have you ever looked at this book and picked it up and wondered why in two different places it says two different things? Have you ever looked at this book and wondered, where did this come from? Who wrote it? What languages did they write it in? Who translated it? When? How? What was the process by which we have the Bible? And the Bible is a process. The Bible is not an event. The Bible is not an occurrence. The Bible is a process. It's a process. And you'll see in a moment that the Bible is a process. Here's my shocking statement. I want to start you off with something shocking. The Bible started over 200,000 years ago with the Anunnaki. And what I show you right here is a picture that I took in the British Museum. And I want you to note a couple of things on this picture. First of all, do you notice that there is a being sitting here who is ginormous, way bigger than this personage right here who's standing up? I found this to be so fascinating. This is at the British Museum on the stairway. I think it's coming out of the Sumerian exhibits, going up the stairs. And there, it's right at the top of the stairs. It's up high up on the wall. And I stood there and I looked at this incredible sculpture thingy that clearly they got out of the wall of some, you know, something somewhere. It was in the Sumerian section, so you know that it's from Sumer somewhere, ancient Sumer, somewhere in that part of the world. And look at this being right here. Look at this being right here, sitting in a chair with this ginormous thing on his head. And this person looks like they are affixing some kind of apparatus to this. Now, tell me if this chair looks like some kind of apparatus. Does that look like, oh, it's just decoration? It's just a king's chair. And why is this being so big? If this being stood up, first of all, the chair is so big that it's almost as big as the person standing here. And if this person stood up, this person would probably come to their waist if you look at the scale of it. And this person is holding something in their hand that we cannot make out what it is. I do know that when I'm looking at this, I see machinery. That's what I see. I see machinery and I see connections, and it looks like some kind of, this one is connecting some kind of hose or something like that to this right here. It looks like machinery. And I was so intrigued by this that I took pictures of it. This is my own picture that I took myself. And I don't know if it's the Anunnaki. I know if it came from Sumeria, it's Anunnaki based. So I want you to take a screenshot of this page because it took a shit ton of work to create this page. And I'm going to start telling you the story. Okay, so what we know is that the Elohim, also known as the Anunnaki, also known as the Anuna gods, the Elohim, the Bible calls them the Elohim, so I'm going to refer to them as the Elohim. So every time you hear me talk about the Elohim, I don't mean gods as what it means in Hebrew. The Elohim are spacefaring beings who arrived on earth hundreds of thousands of years ago. The Elohim. The Elohim is the actual blueprint or template. Let me come off screen share to say this. There's something important I want to say about the Elohim. Hold on. I'm going to come off screen share. The Elohim are the blueprint or the template for all monarchies. What do I mean by this? The Elohim gave humanity the idea of a king, queen type rulership with heirs that they birthed, not people just the most qualified person rules. No, not the most qualified person who rules. Because when they were when they were in their world, wherever their world is, whether it was another planet, like Zechariah Sitchin says that it was Nibiru, whether it was another planet, you see a machine as well. I see a machine as well. I saw a machine as well. And I didn't think I was the only person. I love that. So when you consider that these spacefaring beings came from somewhere else. Now, where they came from is still a matter of conjecture. We don't know exactly where they came from. And perhaps we can get that information when they show themselves fully to all humanity, because they're already in conversation with many humans on this planet. When they show themselves fully to all humanity, I hope we can have this very open discussion and find out their true story of what part of this solar system or beyond our solar system that they came from. Just like 3i Atlas is way out of our solar system, and here it is. Well, these beings brought with them their hierarchy. They had a hierarchy. And what was their hierarchy? It says it in the ancient Sumerian text. It says it. Their hierarchy, they were even fighting over the rulership and the hierarchy on their planet, in their world. They were fighting before they got to Earth. So when they got to Earth, they just continued the fight. So when they were on in their world, they were fighting and they came up with this idea. Hey, how about the first firstborn son of the wife who is also royal is the next ruler, because they had the king, and the king had the consort, the queen consort, which is the queen, his wife, and then he would have other wives. Sound familiar? Sounds like what's in the Bible. He would have other wives. And if one of the other wives got pregnant and had a son before the wife, before the first wife, the queen wife, that was a problem, because now that other mother, maybe the third wife or the fourth wife, is going to say, my son is supposed to be the next king. And the queen consort who's sitting on the throne next to the king is like, I don't think so, because I didn't have a baby yet. So they had that bickering going on. So they had to hash it out. And the way they hashed it out was that the mother had to also be royal. And the royal wife, she also had to have royal in her blood, royalty in her blood. And so therefore, when she had a son, that was the next son that was going to be. The whole part of the whole reason they came here was because they were fighting. Okay. So I just want to say that all of these ideas that we get of kings, queens, royal heirs, the next in line for the throne, we got all of that from the Anunnaki. Humans, before they got here, there were not Homo sapiens like us. There were hominids. They were walking upright, but they were not Homo sapiens. They did not collect themselves in their groups with a king and a queen. No natural groups collect themselves in a king or a queen. Now, when you look at the gorilla family, and I don't want to go to apes just because they say that we descended from apes. We didn't actually descend from apes, yet I'll just use it as an example. Yeah, there's the silverback who's the boss of everybody. Well, that makes sense because the silverback got to be the silverback not because it was first born or the right lineage. The silverback got to be the silverback because it was the most dominant and strong one, and it fought its way, and now it's the biggest one and the strongest one. It can protect everybody. That makes sense. The alpha wolf in the alpha pack, in the pack, didn't get to be the alpha because I'm just born the alpha, and so therefore I'm just the alpha. No, 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 no. That doesn't exist in nature. You duke it out, and the strongest one wins. They call it survival of the fittest, right? So the alpha male had to beat the other ones to become the alpha of the pack. And then all the other wolves bow to that one that just won until somebody else comes along and wants to challenge that alpha and get the role. We nowhere in nature is there, oh, it's just a king and a queen, and this whole royal family is just going to rule us forever. And we're all these other people over here are going to be peasants forever, and these people over here are going to be royal forever. That did not exist in human consciousness, and it would have never existed in human consciousness had not the Anunnaki passed on their structure to humanity. I hope this is very clear because this is a very important piece of the puzzle, because you're going to see just how much kings and queens had to do with the Bible. And why should kings and queens have anything to do with the Bible? They shouldn't, yet they do. Here's another piece that the Anunnaki gave us. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm simply saying, well, let's pay attention to this. They also gave us the idea that the king or the queen is also the divine ruler. They're both the temporal ruler and the spiritual ruler in one. Now, that doesn't exist in our modern day society because we separated church and state. Yet, look how long that was a thing. The rulers were not only the temporal ruler, the one to give the laws, do the judicial things, act in all of the authoritative capacities, order the armies, do this, do that, order everything, order the building, and all of that. In addition to being that kind of king, they were also the spiritual ruler of all the people, that the people were seeing this being, this king, this queen, as divine, as one of the gods that came from the Anunnaki. It's all through Egypt. And I hope that you will accompany us in Egypt when we go for Magic and Manifestation in Egypt. ValerieLove.com. Now let's continue. I wanted to say those pieces before we go on to the Bible, because the Bible started with the Anunnaki. And why do I say that? Because the stories that the Anunnaki, the things they were doing, are in the Bible. Let's give you an example. Anu, the sky god, and his queen, An, right? An, the great mother, they lived in the sky. They were not heavenly, as in a heaven with angels, clouds, all this. No, a physical sky, a spaceport, just like we have. Space stations. They were in the sky. That's what that means. And this is exactly what it says in the text. And if we were just to take the text at face value, we would see that it says it quite plainly that they were in the sky. And the same thing it says in Psalm 82, that there was a sky council. It doesn't say a heavenly council. They were in the sky. They were up there where we put our planes. We don't put our planes in heaven. We put our planes in the sky. We don't put a helicopter in heaven. We don't say the helicopter is a heavenly entity. We don't say that it's a helicopter, it's in the sky. So the same thing. It's technology, it's in the sky. It's not in heaven. Later on, it got changed to like, oh, this is heavenly, celestial, so forth and so on. So An and Anu, they dwelled in the space station hovering above Earth. They didn't live on the planet. And then you have, and An was this very wonderful fatherly kind of figure, just like El, who we get in later Canaanite myths. The god El, he's very fatherly, he's very, and then we get Baal, who is sort of like Enki and Enlil being more of an angry, harsh ruler kind of Yahweh figure. And you get Enki, who is the compassionate one who wants to save Noah and the flood and all of that because the flood's coming. Enlil is like, kill them all. Bring a flood and kill them all. Now, we don't know if they brought the flood or if they just had pre-knowledge of the flood because they could read the skies and they knew that something was going to come past Earth that would cause the melting of the polar ice caps and great cataclysmic floods throughout the planet, or in their area. They had knowledge of it because they were able to lift up. But they said, we're going to leave the people down here because they're just out of control, and they're out of control. And Enki, and they made a pact. When they had the Sky Council meeting, they had a pact not to tell the humans. But Enki felt so bad, and he loved Noah, aka Atrahasis. You can read about this in the Atrahasis epic, aka Utnapishtim, Epic of Gilgamesh. Same dude. And Enki found a way to kind of tell Noah, Atrahasis, Utnapishtim, about the flood without actually coming out and telling him and breaking his oath that he had just made in the Sky Council. This is all written down. No conjecture. It's exactly what it says. Yeah, when scholars look at it, they think, oh, these are gods. It doesn't say they're gods, though. So I just want to give you that piece. Now let's continue with the Bible. Let's continue. All right, and I want you to take a screenshot of this because it took a hell of time to put this together. Just the entire Bible in one session. Okay, so now we have the Elohim. They arrived here almost 500,000 years ago. Okay, and then we get the sudden appearance of Homo sapiens. That's us, about 200,000 to 300,000 years ago. We've talked about the sudden genetic manipulations, not evolution, not development. It was sudden, and it was a manipulation of DNA that caused us to appear about 200 to 300,000 years ago, which is Homo sapiens sapien, which is us, modern day humans. There were others walking around, you know, they talk about Homo naledi, Homo Neanderthal, Denisovan, all these different kinds of beings that were on the planet, ape like beings that were on the planet that had intelligence. That wasn't us. They fused DNA from them and from us, fused DNA from the hominids, the upright hominids, and the star-faring beings. They fused the DNA to create us, Homo sapiens sapiens. And I don't want to use the word create, so let me correct that to genetically engineer. So that's where the Bible starts. That's where all these Bible stories of the Tower of Babel starts with the Anunnaki. The flood starts with the Anunnaki. Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden starts with the Anunnaki. The Sodom and Gomorrah being destroyed by nuclear weaponry, not fire from God, that's the Anunnaki. Like I said, Tower of Babel. Dan L., who I'm now studying, Daniel, I'll be talking about him in an upcoming episode. Dan L., notice the L, because the Elohim, Israel, Mikael, Gabriel, all of these beings were L beings, EL. And so these L beings, all of these different, beings, Dan L, we know him as Daniel in our Bibles, written much later. All of these stories, Ezekiel, all of these stories originate with the Anunnaki, and I'll tell you how we know in a moment. Well, I'll tell you right now how we know. We know because in the 1800s, they pulled these cuneiform tablets. They found the ancient library of King Ashurbanipal, and they found Nineveh, the ancient city of Nineveh, and they found a library, and they found 30,000 plus cuneiform tablets. Now I think it's up to something like 400,000 cuneiform tablets they found, and they were bringing them to Britain, to the British Museum, and they were there, and nobody could read them. And eventually, I write about it in the book. They were able to read them, and they read stories in these ancient cuneiform tablets that had been in the ground, for thousands of years, uncovered, undisturbed. They found the stories of the flood and all these stories you read about in the Bible, long before the first Bible word was ever written. So let's go to it right here. So they found the cuneiform tablets, and they say they date back to 3400 BCE. That's what they say. I say they probably dated back a lot further than that. That's as far as they're willing to go, 3400 BCE, because they have to stay in line with what's accepted in history books. Yet I find it suspicious. Anyway, we do know this, that for thousands of years, these stories were told orally before they were written down as a Bible. Keep that in mind. The stories were told orally. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah, the story of the Tower of Babel, the confusion of the languages, the story of the Great Flood. All these stories were already in circulation, throughout, from Sumeria, Assyria, Babylon, Persia. Then what happens? Well, the Hebrew books, thousands of years later, they start to write the Hebrew books of the Bible, which Christians know today as the Old Testament. So the Hebrew books, when do they start being written? When do they start writing the words that will become Genesis? When do they start writing the words that will become Deuteronomy in our Bible? Now, the earliest dates is 1000 BCE. Most scholars think that's far too early, more like 600 BCE is when they first started writing these things down. And why did they write it? They wrote it because this is why they started writing the Bible, because these were Hebrew books written for Hebrew people to give them an origin story, and it worked. It worked like a charm. To give them an origin story, to give them a one up on everyone else. And they took the old stories where you saw that the Anunnaki had split up different nations among themselves. And that myth is carried from the Anunnaki through to Canaan, where El is the father, ancient Canaanite pantheon, where El is the father. And he has 70 sons. One of the 70 sons is Yahweh. Yahweh was a lesser deity. And Yahweh was the one who was assigned to the Hebrew people. Do you see how that worked? Look this up. So they started writing it somewhere between 1000 all the way to 100 BCE, before Christ, right? Before Common Era, before Christian era, however you like to say it. Now, they were writing these things down, and they were writing them in Hebrew. Hebrew doesn't have vowels. Hebrew, in these Hebrew writings, they would just go on and on and on and on. It wasn't chapter breaks. Like you pick up your Bible and it says Genesis chapter 1, Genesis chapter 2. That wasn't there. It was just continuous writing from right to left. Just continuous writing. You would have to have known the language to understand when to stop, when to pause, what's a break, what's a comma, what's a capital, what's a proper name, what's not. So they started writing and writing, and they quote that they found Deuteronomy. They probably just wrote Deuteronomy. And it wasn't by Moses. Moses didn't write this. We don't know who wrote it. They put the first five books of it together and said Moses wrote it. This will get you to pay attention. Moses, this great hero. Moses never existed. Even Dr. Joel Baden of Yale University, you hear me quote him many times. He is also in the book. Dr. Joel Baden always says nothing that you read about in Moses in the Bible is even plausible or historically or even remotely true. It's not even plausible what you read in the Bible about Moses. It's not true. It's not even plausible. This is another one going back. Let's go back. New information is not a threat. Moses never existed. New information is not a threat. It's an opportunity. That's all. It's just an opportunity. So all these books were being written. And remember, they weren't books. They were scrolls, right? Just right. Parchment paper. Remember, the cuneiform tablets were, you had a little stylus and you pressed little marks into a tablet and heated it in the sun. And that could last forever unless the thing shattered. But remember, when they started writing on the scrolls, they don't last, right? Because they get real crinkly and after a while they just disintegrate. That's why we have a lot of fragments from what was written on papyrus or goat skin, whatever they were writing on to make the scroll. Okay, so it's these first few books, they're all in Hebrew. No one else can read them. It's for the Hebrew people. It's not for everybody else. So this whole idea that you're supposed to be, burdened by the laws of the Hebrew Bible, and all the times if I had a nickel for every time somebody say that's enough suffer which to live. It's so idiotic because first of all, they don't even know that didn't come from God. Second, they don't know that those words were written for a very specific, tiny little group of people that were assigned to Yahweh. Different people groups were assigned to different ones of the Anunnaki. And Enki oversaw a people group that was in Africa, which they call the Apsu. In Africa, they were doing writing, magic, and all of that even before it got to Sumer. Very advanced when you go to Greater Zimbabwe, which I'm going to definitely go to Greater Zimbabwe. And when you go to Adam's calendar, which was which is way older than Stonehenge. But no one wants to talk about that because it's in sub-Saharan Africa. That's a no-go zone. That's a no-fly zone. Anything. Oh, the dark continent. No, that's nothing but savages live there. That's what all these colonizing archaeologists thought. And I'm not saying colonizer is a color. Colonizer is a consciousness. I have to make that clear every time I say colonizer. It's a consciousness. It's not a color, because we still have colonizers on the planet right now, and they're all different colors. Colonizer comes in every color. Now, so what is the Septuagint? So after a while, Greek becomes the language, right? The lingua franca, as they say. Before, Sumerian was the language, right? And then different places, different languages. And as things kind of morphed, and Assyria came to rise and Babylon came to rise, the languages changed with the people. So by the time you get to like BCE and you start to get into Rome and whatnot, Greco-Roman era, people are speaking Greek. And so they want these books that these other people wrote in Hebrew, they want them in Greek. And how did that happen? Well, Ptolemy, one of the Ptolemies, which you will see the Ptolemies when we go to Egypt, you'll see the Ptolemies in the Egyptian Museum. Very interesting. You even see the Ptolemies, the Greek kings that came and invaded into Egypt. The Ptolemies, there were 4 Ptolemies, I believe. And when you see the Ptolemies, they're Greek people, but they have on the headdress they love to put on the headdress of the Egyptians. Anyway, the Ptolemies, one of the Ptolemies commissioned for these for the Library of Alexandria, because they were building this incredible library. Well, before the library even, they built the museum. What was the museum? The museum was this incredible building, like edifice, dedicated to the 9 muses. Let me show it to you in the book. Let me show you what I'm talking about in the book, because maybe this will make it easier. So let's go to, this is the book. The real God is not in the Bible. All of this is in the book and way more. Let's get to the Septuagint. Here it is, the Septuagint. Okay, so here's the chapter on the Septuagint. Okay, so once upon a time, this is the story. There was a Greek ruler in Egypt named King Ptolemy II. Oh, it was the second Ptolemy, Philadelphus, who desired to collect all human knowledge in the world into an amazing library called the Library of Alexandria, located on the far northern tip of Egypt along the shores of the great waters now known as the Mediterranean Sea. Woo! The magnificent library had begun with his father, King Ptolemy I Soter. I knew it was the first King Ptolemy. Okay, I was right. Who, on the counsel of a Greek statesman and visionary, Demetrius of Phaleron, started the project as part of the Museum, an institution for learning dedicated to the 9 muses, goddesses in Greek mythology, who inspire art, creativity, learning, and knowledge. And you know the muses, there they are. Calliope is epic poetry, Cleo, history, Erato, love poetry, Euterpe, music and lyric poetry, Melpomene, I hope I'm saying these names right, tragedy, Polyhymnia, sacred poetry and hymns. I love her. Terpsichore, dance. If anybody speaks Greek, please put the phonetic spelling in the comments. I would greatly appreciate it. Thalia, comedy and pastoral poetry. Urania, astronomy. These are the 9 muses. And the great library housed scrolls that had been copied from literature around the then known world. They were trying to gather all of the known knowledge into this library of Alexandria. So definitely they wanted to have copies of the Hebrew writings in there. So they wanted to get it in there. But now they didn't have it in Greek. It was only in Hebrew. So they said, hey, we need to get this translated into Greek because we don't speak this ancient Hebrew language. Now, nobody thought, other than the Hebrew people that created these writings, the world didn't think that they were supposed to be living by these writings. Can you understand? Let me come off screen share for a second. Can you understand the words that are coming out? Again, I have to check in with everybody. Can y'all understand what I'm talking about? No one thought this was a Bible. These writings, different scrolls all over the place, wasn't even collected together yet. Just different scrolls, just circulating all around. And different groups of Hebrew people had different scrolls. They weren't even unanimous in their scrolls. The scrolls were not homogeneous. It wasn't like one set of scrolls. No, this group had this kind of scroll because everything was written. You had to write it. So it was impossible for them all to be identical, especially when you're having some Jews that live on Elephantine Island down in Egypt. You have some Hebrew people that live in this area of the Levant and some that live in this area. These different groups of people had different writings, and they were following them, but nothing said the whole world had to follow them. Where do you get a bizarre idea like that everybody is supposed to follow the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament? It was never intended for that. It didn't come from God. It was never intended for that, beloved. You are hereby free. You are officially freed from the God of the Old Testament. Doesn't it feel good? You are officially free from Yahweh. Oh, thank God. That's not God. Let me look at the comments. Does everybody understand what I'm talking about? Does everybody understand what I'm talking about? Oh, how you loving? How you loving? Oh, I got to see these messages in a little bit. I love it. I love it. Okay. So we must understand what the Bible is. Listen, I'm a practicing Christian witch. I use the Bible. I love the Bible. I just know the Bible's not from God. And if we are to be even church people, at least know what the Bible is, because they're forcing it on everybody else. They're forcing it on people saying, "Oh, you've got to read this. You have to read this. The Bible said this. The Bible said that." Right. Well, where did that book come from? And if you ask the average Christian, where did that book come from? They can't tell you the first thing about Codex Alexandrinus, Codex Sinaiticus, Codex, the Wycliffe Psalter, the Wycliffe Bible. They won't tell you the first thing about it. They don't know anything about it. They just know the Lord said, "That's Jesus. And thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." It's just stupidity when you understand, when you have understanding, and then you can just smile when other people don't want to have understanding, because you do know that there are people that don't want to have understanding. That's okay too. That is a-okay if they don't want to have understanding. They don't have to have understanding. Okay. All right, let's continue. Hey, Ghana, watching from Ghana. Photo and message. I don't know. I don't know. Are you in one of our groups? I don't know. Discerning spirituality. I don't know what that is. So say more so I understand what it is, because I don't know what that is. You know what's funny about this, TY? You know what's funny about this time? I love the knowledge on your funny faces that cracks me up. You know what's funny? The things that I say are so absolutely heretical and earth shattering and so destabilizing for the church as we know it, that if I don't say it with some humor, our brains would combust. Our brains would probably explode, because these truth bombs are just so unlike anything that we've been taught. And we have been lied to. We have been lied to. It has not been the truth what we've been told. And now it's time for us to open our eyes all the way. Let's continue. Yay! We are all officially free of, on Insta. Oh, I rarely, let me say this. This is for everyone watching. I rarely go into the uh, um, DMs, because I got a shit ton of DMs. As you can imagine, I rarely go into the DMs. So my email is at the bottom for of videos for sponsorships, for those who are reaching out, people reaching out for speaking engagements, all those kinds of things. And that's where they get me. Okay. All right, let's continue on our story of where did the Bible come from. Let's continue our story because this is probably the most fascinating story in the entire world. It is so fascinating. It is so fascinating. Okay, so now we're up to here. We're up to, hey, we're going to make this thing be translated into Greek because we want to understand, we want to put this in our great library of Alexandria. We want to gather together all this knowledge and whatnot. Okay, so the Septuagint, what is that? Sept stands for 70. So, there's a story about it and then there's the truth about it. I won't go into the story about it because I write about it in the book. The truth about it is that the Hebrew scriptures were translated into Greek. That's the Septuagint, okay? Meaning 70, and sometimes you see it as LXX, okay? Roman numerals 70. Then the next thing we get, according to scholars, even though this is being hotly contested, according to scholars, the next thing we get in the way of writings in the Bible are Paul's letters between 50 and 60 CE, which is about a couple of decades after Jesus died. So we have the Septuagint happening, the translation into Greek. So all you have now are Greek, you have the Septuagint, which is the Greek version of these Hebrew writings that were going around. But you don't have anybody writing a Bible until you get to Paul's letters, which they say happened somewhere around 50 to 60, even though that might be inaccurate, right? Then after that, you have the Gospels being written 70 to 100 CE. And at the same time, around 90 to 200 CE, you're also having the Jewish people create their canon. See, all of these things develop over time because they're developments. It's a process. You can't just do something like that with the Bible. It's a process, right? It's a process. Now, let's get to one of my favorites, Marcion. So here we are now, about 100 years after Jesus died. And Marcion is this incredible scholar, super rich, super knowledgeable, super learned, super smart. And this is what Marcion says. He says, you know what? Hey guys, public service announcement. That God that's in the Hebrew Bible that some of the, that the Jewish people worship, that's not the same God Jesus is talking about. That's a different God, guys. And I don't think we ought to be smashing up all these books together. I think we need to have a clear distinction between that God of the Jewish people, super crazy. I don't like that God. It's not my dude. And what people who follow Christ might want to, work with. And Marcion was the first person to come up with a sort of New Testament, and it was only 11 books. Like, this is it, guys, just these 11. And what were the 11? It was one book called the Evangelion, and the Evangelion just means gospel, sort of like a prototype of the Gospel of Luke, right? Evangelion. And then the rest was the Apostolicon, which is 10 books, 10 letters supposedly written by Paul. So he just had 11. Now, your Bible has way more than 11. Marcion was like, no, it's just 11, guys. No, it's just 11. But now, guess what? At first, the church liked Marcion because Marcion was giving them big donations because Marcion, he's hanging out, he's rich, he's hanging out with all the elites and whatnot. And, he's giving money to the church, which is what you do if you're elite and you're rich, you give money to the church. And yet he had his own beliefs and his own ideas, and they didn't like that. So they excommunicated him. They're like, dude, you got to go. Now, I think Because of the time he was living in, they weren't killing people yet over this, but that time would be soon coming. Now, moving forward, we got so Marcion said it's just 11 books. Like that's if you had a Marcion Bible, it would only be 11 books. It would be the Evangelion, which is the gospel, or Evangelion, however you like to say it. It would be just one gospel, which is Luke, and it would be 10 books. You can look up Marcion's 11 books, 10 books, which are like the letters of Paul. And that would be it. It would just be 11 books. That would be your whole Bible, because you would not have a Bible for Christian people that grabbed the Jewish people's Bible and smashed it up with your Bible. You wouldn't have had that. But you know, the church was not trying to hear that. Then we had Codex Vaticanus, Codex Sinaiticus, which are the Old Testament and the New Testament, created around the 300s. Okay. Now, we still don't have an official Bible canon. It's still kind of all these different books are floating around, but Codex Vaticanus has a lot of books in it together in one codex. Now that's breakthrough. Codex Sinaiticus, same thing. It has, you see, Codex Sinaiticus and Codex Vaticanus, they're contemporary with each other. Someone is sitting down writing in these big, huge books, yet it's not an official canon yet. They're just including a lot of different books. Some may or may not make it into the canon. So they're just writing. Now, if you want to know what Codex Sinaiticus and Codex Vaticanus looks like, here it is. I took pictures of it. This is my picture that I took at the British Library, where I have a reader's card and I can go in and look at all these different things and ask for things and all that. I think it's pretty easy to get a reader's card at the British Library, and then you can go in and you can get all kinds of things and look at them. But this, you don't even need a reader's card for this part, because this part is a public exhibit. This is Codex Sinaiticus. So that's what it looks like. It looks like a big giant book, but this is all handwritten. Can you see that? Can you believe people sat down and wrote this? Do you see that? Do you see that? Okay, that's Codex Sinaiticus. Here, I also bought for you and prepared for you a picture of Codex Vaticanus, which I also took a picture of. No, this one is Codex Alexandrinus, coming up a little bit, which I also took a picture of. One of the earliest manuscripts of the Old and New Testament, also written. Look at that. Look at that. I mean, have you ever seen something so mind-blowing that people wrote it? Oh my goodness. No printing presses. And here you are with easy, print anything you want at Office Depot. And wow. Okay, we didn't get to the Wycliffe Bible yet, so let's go there next. Okay, let's continue on our walk through the Bible. This is pretty much how you got the Bible. Now, the church's New Testament of 27 books, that's when they solidified, okay, hey, we need to say what these books are, because Marcion and all his followers are running around. He's super popular, and this is hundreds of years later. They were running around with certain books, and the church had to come up with, well, what are the books that we have? And so they got that together, 27 books of the New Testament, which is what you have now, and 46 books of the Old Testament, which is not what you have if you are reading a Protestant Bible. You only have 39 books of the Hebrew Bible or the Old Testament. You have 27 books in the New Testament. Okay, so then we get the Latin Vulgate. So what's the story of that? Okay, so now all we have the book in Hebrew and Greek, right? But Rome is big now. It's 382 to 405. The Roman Church, the Roman Catholic Church, the church says we need it in Latin. So they go get, I think it was Pope Damascus, tells Jerome, who is now a saint, one of the four church fathers, right? Tells Jerome, he wasn't a saint then yet. Listen, Jerome, you're a scholar, you're super smart, you know these different languages. Make us a Latin Bible. We need you to make a Latin Bible. However, what's the problem with that? The problem with that is that the Latin Bible, when they made this translation, it's not very good. I tell you why in the book. Because it has to conform to church doctrine. And there are several places where Jerome had to kind of make the Bible say what the church was saying that it didn't really say. I explain all of that in the book with examples. Codex Allen's, so that's the Latin Vulgate. Keep that in mind. So now we have the Bible in what? We have it in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. Okay? The year is 405. We have it in Hebrew, different books circulating all around, Greek circulating around, and Latin. And by now we also have a canon. It's in the 400s, which is okay. It's these 27 books for the New Testament, it's 46 books in the Old Testament. Now, fast forward to 500 to 1000 CE. The Jewish people are working on their text, which is the law, the prophets, and the writings. You hear Jesus talk about the law and the prophets. What does that mean? I'll show you what it means in the book. Let's go over to the manuscript and I will show you what that means in the Old Testament. You heard Jesus talk about this all the time. Oh, Tanakh. Here it is, the Tanakh. Okay, here is the Tanakh. The Tanakh is the Hebrew Bible. So it's made up of the Torah, which are the first 5 books of the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Remember, those books weren't written for you. They were written for Hebrew people. I don't know why you're trying to live by those books. They were never meant for you. They're not yours. Don't do cultural appropriation with other people's stuff. It's the law. It's the prophets, which includes Joshua, Judges, Samuel, Kings, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and the writings, which include Psalms, Proverbs, things like that. Okay? The law and the prophets. And you would hear Jesus say that all the time. Isn't it written in the law and the prophets? That's what he's talking about. This wasn't all one book. They were separate things. Your Bible has them all together like, oh, they all just popped out of God's brain all at once. How ridiculous. No, it did not. Are we starting to understand this? Let me come off screen share for a minute. Are we understanding this? Are we starting to understand this? Okay, good. Latoya, how you loving? How you loving? Okay, are you understanding? Is everyone understanding this? Tell me in the comments what you are ascertaining from this, because all of you are very intelligent. You're learned. You love research. You love this show. You have been reading these things. You've been keeping up with these different councils. You've been keeping up with this show. Tell me your thoughts in the comments, because I tell you, I read the comments and it is fascinating. Okay. Love this. When were the various councils of Constantine in this timeline? Oh, that's an excellent question. So there were many councils. Oh my goodness, there were many councils. And people tend to think that everything happened at the Council of Nicaea, but in the book, I talk about the various different councils, and different councils decided different things, yet the canon morphed. They couldn't solve it at one council. And the reason they could not solve it at one council is because they were discussing it back and forth. There were North African bishops. There were bishops in the East, bishops in the West, those in Jerusalem. There was those in Rome. They were going back and forth, writing letters back and forth. How is it this way? Is it that way? Is the other way? It is absolutely not agreed upon by everybody. They didn't all even agree that Jesus was the Son of God. They did not. They didn't agree that there was a Trinity. They didn't agree as if Jesus was divine. When did he become divine? Was he divine when he was born? Or was he divine when he got baptized and then the dove came down? Or was he divine because he got baptized? When did he turn divine, and how does the Trinity work? They were hashing out all of that. They were going back and forth over all of that. None of that was set in stone. That took hundreds of years to develop. It took time to develop all these things. Okay? It took time to develop all those things. Discerning, tell me who you are and what you want to send. Now I'll tell you an easy way to do it. Okay? All good. All right. So that's an excellent question. That is an excellent question. Let's continue. And please do tell me what you're seeing about the Bible as you see it go through all these hands. And as you see it morph and come together and people arguing over it and people haggling over it. And we're not even done yet. But wait, there's more. Okay, let's go back on screen share because I can't keep you here all night talking about the Bible. Let's start to come down the other side of this mountain that is the Bible. Wow, because it's just so much. Now, before we go back into this, I want to give you this. Please, please, please. Guess what? We now have the cover of the book. The real God is not in the Bible. Y'all have been asking for. Y'all have been. Oh, you. I think you can put a photo on the. I think you can put a photo on the community page. Do it there. Put it on the community page because I'll see it on my YouTube channel, Valerie Love YouTube channel. Go to the community page and put it on there. You'll be able to post it right there and put your comments there too, and I'll see it because I definitely am on the community page. So this is what I want you to do with that link. When you get that link, you are going to see the cover for the book. Tell me what you think of the cover. Is it scary? Because what I've been hearing from people in our groups, in our Money Magic group and the Mystery School, if you're not in one of our private communities, look down below the vid so that you can come into our spiritual communities, live on purpose, create abundance, do magic, and manifest the life of your dreams. Those are in the description. This is the book cover. The book cover designer nailed it. I absolutely love, love, love what she created. This is the cover. So you've seen a different cover on Amazon. On Amazon, there is only the ebook, and everyone has been asking, when is the paperback coming? When is the hardcover coming? Good news, the paperback and the hardcover are coming. Special editions, signed even by yours truly. This book is huge at a whopping 474 pages. It's giant. It is giant. And do you love the cover? I absolutely love the cover. So I want you to go right now to Kickstarter. And when the project will be launching soon, I want you to notify me on launch. I'm in my own account now, my Kickstarter. This is what it looks like. It will only be sold on Kickstarter. The paperback and the hardcover will only be sold on Kickstarter for now. The special editions will only be on Kickstarter. And so you want to go there and for free open an account right now and click notify me on launch so that we can notify you when it goes live. And you can hop in there and get your special edition, limited special edition. You can hop in there and get the paperback and the hardcover. These would not be on Amazon until sometime late next year. This is how we are releasing them. And the special editions and the signed copies will never be on Amazon. So you're talking about rare special editions of The Real God is Not in the Bible. So follow the project. Just use that link and you go there right now. Well, right after the video. And click notify me on launch, okay? Let's continue with the Bible. Now, so the Masoretic text, what is that? And then we're going to get into this juicy part because there's a whole lot of wars on this side of the page. This is like development and this is like fighting and wars. Fighting and Catholic Protestant going back and forth. The Masoretic text. What is the Masoretic text? This is when a group of Masoretes or Masoretes, who are Jewish people, start to work on updating their Hebrew scriptures to include vowels, vocalization, punctuation, notes. They're working on their Hebrew scriptures and they're refining it and they're putting in punctuation. As I mentioned, they're putting in vowels because the original one had no vowels. And they're updating it and they're bringing it into more of a modern, I know the year 1000 CE, 1,000 years ago doesn't sound modern. It is definitely modern compared to when they first started writing it 1,500 years before that. So you could say it is modern. And so these were Jewish people working on their scriptures. This has nothing to do with the New Testament. Now let's go to this side of the Bible. This is where you're going to get into some juiciness. The Wycliffe Bible. Now, this was the first full translation into English. Remember, we only had Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. English people could not read the Bible. They just had to stand there in church and listen to the Pope and all these bishops just read it in Latin and just be like, do you know what they're saying? Have no clue. Okay, you're just listening. Wycliffe felt like people should be able to read the Bible. And of course, um, that was not going to go over very well. That was not going to go over very well. He translated the Bible, full translation in the 1300s, late 1300s, from the Latin Vulgate that St. Jerome had done, and he is handwritten. Oh my God, that's why these things take years. He's translating the entire Bible into English. Can you imagine? Okay, meanwhile, Erasmus is doing the New Testament in Greek, but printed because now it's 1516. They can print things. Ah, we can print things. That's amazing. We can print things. And this is known as Textus Receptus. Now, I want to tell you something about Wycliffe. Let's go into the book again. And I just want to show you something about the Wycliffe Bible. Incredible, incredible, incredible. Okay, here is what you want to know about the Wycliffe Bible. This is what Wycliffe believed. He believed that scripture should be available to all people. And he also said that the authority of the Bible was higher than church hierarchy. And he was somewhat of a reformer. You see that I'm still writing on this. He was somewhat of a reformer because he's not going according to the prescribed, you know, church dogma. Because the church is just standing there reading everything to people in Latin. And the people don't understand Latin. And the people would like to know what the Bible says. They would like it in English. Martin Luther. Martin Luther, now this was a critical twist. Martin Luther translated the Bible into German. And when he did it, he said, I don't think the Apocrypha is supposed to be in here. So he moved the Apocrypha to the appendix saying, these books, they're not scripture, but they're good to read to have a wholesome life. But these are not scripture. So the Protestants start to make a break in their Bible from the Catholics. The Catholics still have the Apocrypha. The Protestants are rebelling. It's a reformation going on. It's a revolution. The Protestants, they don't want the church to tell them what to do. They're over the corruption of all of these churches and all of the, the little parish priests that would be pimping them for money. They're over this corruption, all these monasteries raking in all this gold from the people, and the people are poor as I don't know what. They're over this. And I'm going to tell you something. I wouldn't even be talking about these European people if it didn't have something to do with the Bible. I'm telling you the history of the Bible. If I had my druthers, I'd be talking about people that were in Egypt or somewhere in the motherland or sub-Saharan Africa. The only reason I'm talking to you about these European people, because I tend to feel that many of these European people, I don't know. I want to reserve judgment. Uh, Many of them just were not good people. And I'm not saying they weren't good people because they were European people. I'm saying they just weren't good people. Your color doesn't determine whether you're good or not. Martin Luther translated the Bible into German, but Martin Luther was a revolutionary. You know, we learned about him in school. He nailed those things to the church door. I've had it with you, Catholic Church. I'm getting out of here. I'm going to make my own Bible. So he makes the Bible, but he takes the Apocrypha, he moves it to the appendix. It's like, we don't think those are scriptures. Okay. Now the Tyndale Bible. Oh, the plot thickens. So Martin Luther, 1522 to 1534, he works on his Bible. Here comes the Tyndale Bible. Now the Tyndale Bible was the first printed New Testament translation because remember, now we have the printing press. Now we can print the Bible and get it to people. Now, very interesting. This Tyndale Bible, I wish I could get my hands on that Tyndale Bible. Oh, let me show you a picture of the Wycliffe Bible, handwritten. Let me show you a picture of it because I have a picture of it. There it is. This is the Wycliffe Psalter, which is a small version. Man, if I could get my hands on one of these Bibles, I would absolutely buy it. It's the Psalter and only has the Psalms. Look how beautiful this Bible is. Handwritten. Look how beautiful. I can't read it. It's in English, yet it's in Old English. It's in Old English. So most modern people have no idea what it's talking about. You can make out a word here or there. Isn't that beautiful? Look at the gold on the edge, gilded pages. Oh my goodness. It just makes me happy to even look at that Wycliffe Psalter. So the Wycliffe Bible, okay? Let's continue. Take a screenshot of this. Feel free. I worked on it enough. Here we are. We're down here now. Let's look at Tyndale. Tyndale, he's going to be in some hot water. He's going to be in some hot water. Why? Because he made a translation of just the New Testament, not the Old Testament, just the New Testament, into English, and he went to the original Greek, not to the Latin Vulgate, not to what the church had commissioned Jerome to do, because Tyndale knew Greek. So he went to the original Greek. He bypassed the Latin Vulgate. He's like, I'm not using that Latin Bible that the church made up. I'm going to the original Greek and I'm going to figure out what the Bible says. And he's translated the New Testament into English, printed. The Tyndale Bible, printed in English from the original Greek. 1526 to 1530. What? Well, you know the church wasn't going to sit around and let that man do that. Hold on, let me tell you about him. If you don't already know what happened to William Tyndale, okay? Do you think the church was going to let Tyndale print up copies and copies and copies of an English Bible, New Testament, and give it to all the good church going folks that are just standing there listening to the Latin? Don't know what they're talking about. Okay, that sounds nice. We don't know what the priest is saying. We don't know. Like, and Tyndale is like, you want to find out what's really in that book? And he's printing it up, just printing copies and just giving. I'm like, oh my God, if I was alive then, I would have been right there with William Tyndale, getting my fingers dirty, getting these Bibles to people, I would have definitely been doing that. I would have been doing it. That way you read it for yourself and come to your own conclusions and don't stand there in church looking like, I don't know what they're saying. Read it for yourself. Well, Tyndale, what do you think happened to him? Yes, the church got a hold of him, and next thing you know, strangled him and then burned him at the stake. That was it. See, he got betrayed because he was in the area. Then he left the area so that he could keep printing and disseminating the Bibles, but he got betrayed. Oh, baby, you got to look out for the Judas in the bunch, right? And I'm not saying Judas was a betrayer because that story is not true. I'm saying that in the common vernacular, people think of Judas as the betrayer of Jesus. So I'm just referring to Judas as how most people think of him, as a betrayer. He has someone who betrayed him. Isn't that plot incredible in the whole story of the Bible? Someone betrayed him, handed him over, he got arrested. That was the end of that. And they burned him at the stake. But mercifully, they strangled him first because that was a mercy. If you were going to get killed and first they just slit your throat or strangled you, that was considered merciful because then you didn't have to have the horrible burning, but they're still going to burn you because they think you're going to hell. For giving people a Bible in English, New Testament only. Let's continue. Have you ever heard all this about the Bible? I'm just curious. Have you ever heard all of this about the Bible? Has anyone ever told you? No one ever told me any of this about the Bible. Did anyone ever tell you? I had to go and find out on my own. Had to put all the puzzle pieces together for myself. That's why I'm giving it to you. And I will scream it from the mountaintops and tell everyone that I can tell about this. Okay, let's go to the Protestant Reformation now in the 1530s. What does the Protestant Reformation do? They start removing books from the official Old Testament canon. They don't want the Apocrypha in there. So now that they have come up, they have the Coverdale Bible. The Coverdale Bible is the first printed full translation into English with the Apocrypha, and it was not forbidden because it was sanctioned by King Henry VIII, the one who had the 6 wives and he killed unalived a couple of them. Yeah, that King Henry. 6 wives. And a couple of them heads off. Heads off. Because back then, those monarchs didn't think nothing about burning you at the stake or chopping your head off or putting you under a guillotine. They thought nothing of it. And they would sit there and drink and toast while they see people getting unalived. It's fascinating. Anyway, the Coverdale Bible was not forbidden, yet what we see happening in the Protestant Reformation is that the Apocrypha are removed. The Geneva Bible, this is the Bible of the Reformation, they call it 1560, and the King James Version, 1611. These books, even though they have the Apocrypha, they're kind of putting it to the side. King James Version puts the Apocrypha kind of between the Old Testament and New Testament. They're getting more shadowy and more shadowy until the Westminster Confession removes the Apocrypha altogether in 1646 CE and declares them no for Protestants. The Catholics can have them. And the reason I tell you this story, take a screenshot because we're about to come off of this. We're about to be done. I want you to go to valerielove.com, and there you will see the info for coming with us to Egypt so that you can study for yourself. We go to valerielove.com, and there you can see also, this is valerielove.com/books. You can see where you can get the book. And if you go to valerielove.com, you will see the upcoming events. And you will also see our winter solstice ritual and retreat with plant medicine coming up next month that you can join us with. That will be closing soon. The Bali retreat, the Egypt manifestation retreat, and my new witch course that I absolutely love from my publisher of my book, Witch. Oh my goodness. You can preview the course for free. So if you go to valerielove.com and you click on preview the course, you can get a preview of the course for free. And if you like it, pick it up. Now, this is what I want to say. The Bible has a long history, thousands of years. The Bible started with the Anunnaki. The Bible was a process bringing it to us. And what I just did was I traced the Bible from the Anunnaki to us, only the Protestant Bible. This is not the Catholic Bible, which had a different trajectory. This is not the Ethiopian Bible, which had a different trajectory. This is not the Greek Orthodox Bible, which had a different trajectory. This is the Protestant Bible that I've been talking about all this time, because I was raised in the Protestant tradition. And I think most of you also come from the Protestant tradition, even though some of you may be Catholics as well, or may have been Catholics. But most of the people that I talk to, people who are Baptist or Methodist or Anglican or whatever you may be, those are all Protestant denominations. So we're talking here about the development of the Protestant Bible. I want you to tell me what you think about this. I want you to tell me in the comments what you think about this. I want to hear from you, because I want to know, has anyone really ever broke down what the Bible is, where it came from, all the hands that it went through? Do you see all the thousands of hands the Bible went through to give you this book that you hold in your hands today? And I want to tell you, people died for that. Tyndale strangled and burned at the stake for giving people that book. That's how much they did not want you to have that book. And some of the forbidden books took those and shifted them out. That means that you ought to go read them. We get to read them. In 2026, we'll be reading the Bible here on this channel. More about that coming up. People died for this. They died to bring you humanity's book. Because once again, it started with the Anunnaki and came all the way through to now. This is humanity's book. Collection of literature, unlike anything else on the planet. If you want to join us in the Mystery School, we will be going on the Mystery School tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. In about another 30 minutes or so, we will be on the Mystery School. So absolutely, absolutely do join us in the Mystery School if you desire. The Mystery School link is below in the comment, in the description. I think the Mystery School link is in the description. If it's not, I'll put it here now for you before we wrap up, because I love you that much and I'd love to see more of you. I love you that much and I'd love to see more of you. So let me go ahead and invite you in to the Mystery School. I got the copy of the link right here. Hold on. And let me get you. I'm going to drop it in the chat. Alrighty, that is the Mystery School. Nobody has ever told me this. Let me look and see this comment. Nobody has ever told me this. I grew up Catholic and went to Catholic schools, but when I asked questions, I was told to sit in the corner. What a travesty. What a travesty. That's a no, right? We've got to know. We've got to know. We've got to know. Make sure you follow the project on Kickstarter. I love you, and I will see you in 2 weeks, because next Wednesday is Thanksgiving, and we will not be here on Wednesday night. I'll be hanging with my family. So we will see you in 2 weeks for the next episode of The Real God Is Not in the Bible. Peace. Kaisi out. ValerieLove.com.